Hi, I'm Father Wesley Evans. I'm priest in charge in St. Stephen's Episcopal Church, and this will be the second video I'm doing. This one will talk about vestments. And today, mostly upon my wife's suggestion, I have Lucy, our cat, and she'll be helping out, I guess. So I'll put Lucy down as we talk about the other vestments here. When you walk into an Episcopal church, and particularly when you walk into St. Stephen's, you will see those of us on the altar are wearing lots of different funny clothes. And we call those vestments. Vestments do several things. Vestments designate who is doing what in the liturgy. So the priest wears something. If we have a deacon will wear something. The acolytes wear something. They all wear something to designate their role. Right? And they're also wearing special clothing because we're doing something special. So I, as the priest, wear particular sets of special clothing because I'm doing something special at the altar. And it's all about that sort of approach to God at the altar, and it designates my role and what all's going on. And maybe another video will do more on the sacraments and the theology. But mostly today, I just wanted to show you the vestments. Come on, Lucy. Let's go take a look. Show right there. So one of the first things, now what I'm wearing right now is called a cassock. And a cassock is really just traditionally street guard. It would have been, in England, the thing that priest wore. And there's a reason we put that on there. Come on, Lucy. Let's get down from there. We're not showing off those vestments yet. There you go. The cassock would have been worn just as streetwear. And in fact, only Church of England clergy for some time in England were allowed to wear them. It is considered the garment for clergy. And this part here is just a cassock, and again, it's considered a normal, just regular streetwear here. And this, often you'll find these, they just called cinctures. Sometimes you've seen them girdles. Technically, it's called a fascia. Right? Fascia derives from the Latin word for authority. Okay, so it designates authority. I actually made this one. That's why it bunches up a little bit. It was my first one I made. And the cassock I got from another student in the Shoda house. So I kind of have, this one has some history behind it. But this is the basic clothing for a priest. They will wear this cassock, which comes in these two pieces. Now, the first part of vestments that one would wear is we have to make a distinction between choir dress and maybe you might call sacramental dress. Choir dress is what clergy wear when they're in choir, which doesn't mean they're necessarily singing. It just means what they're wearing when they're not performing any other specific sacramental liturgical duties. And a choir dress starts off with a cassock, and the only addition is this, which is called a surplice. And we put on the surplice, like so. Okay. This begins choir dress. Now, if I were not ordained, or if I were an acolyte of some sort, if I were a thurifer, if I were a torchbearer, things of that nature, this is where I would stop. Our acolytes wear cassock and surplice, so do our thurifer. Any layperson generally functioning in the liturgy of any sort would wear this. Our choir would wear the same thing. However, being ordained, now I can add on one additional item if I'm in choir dress. That item is either a tippet, which I don't have with me, it's just a black scarf-looking thing, or, and particularly since I'm a priest, I would wear a stole. Okay, and so I'll go ahead and show off a stole here. Let me pull out we have a nice purple one here. This is a stole, okay? And it has a cross here. Kiss the cross. If I'm wearing it as choir dress, this is it. I just put it right over like this, like you see here, and I would be ready to be in the liturgy if I don't have any specific function. Okay? Now, let's assume that I'm not in choir dress, and that I have some other particular function. I would not be wearing the surplice. On this chair here. Instead, I'd be wearing this set of vestments over here, which the Altar Guild has nicely laid out, and I will unfortunately have to ruin for this video. We have it covered here. And these are the full set of vestments that a priest will wear during the Eucharist or Mass or Lord's Supper, or whichever one you would like to call it. And as you see, it's laid out in a specific way. And the layout is here on this chart. And the Altar Guild does a very great job of laying it out in this order for every service. Now, each of these pieces of clothing, and a lot of the vestments in general, developed from early Roman clothing. They obviously didn't look a lot like this. This is over time they developed to look like this. But they were early Roman regular clothing in many ways. And then over Christian history, they turned into something that the clergy would wear and wear for the Eucharist, and also developed certain symbolic meanings and prayers and rituals connected with them. So there are certain specific prayers that are said with these. And this first piece of vestment is this big rectangular, this big square piece of fabric with these two little straps is called an amice. And an amice goes on the head, like so. And the traditional prayer with the amice is, "Place, O Lord, the helmet of salvation upon my head to repel the assaults of the devil." So as you see, the amice then symbolically represents the helmet of salvation. Think Ephesians 6 and the idea of spiritual protection. And this next item, which, if I'll pull it out first, looks sort of like a surplice. Actually, the surplice developed from this, apparently. And this is called an alb. For those of you who know Latin, alb is white. So this is the white thing. And the alb goes over the amice like so. And the traditional prayer with the alb is, "Cleanse my heart, O Lord." When I do this on Sunday, I just kind of get in a pattern. I have to think about it. It's a little different. "Cleanse me, O Lord, and purify my heart, that being made white in the blood of the Lamb, I may obtain the everlasting salvation." So it represents purity and the purification from sins, etc. The next one is the girdle. Girdle or kincture. Technically, this is a girdle. Again, kincture sometimes gets used as a catch-all for all of these things. And it's just a long piece of rope that wraps around my waist. And the prayer is, "Gird me, O Lord, with the girdle of purity, and quench in me the fire of concupiscence, that the grace of temperance and chastity may abide in me." And chastity does just mean sexual purity. It is not the same thing as celibacy. But that represents basically then temperance, the idea of not giving in to our baser passions. The next object is the stole, which you saw earlier. Okay, now, when I'm wearing these, I put on the stole differently. You saw with the surplice, the stole just hung around my neck. Now, since the 8th century, around 700s, in Western Europe, a tradition developed of wearing the stole in a certain way to designate whether you are a priest or a bishop, or a deacon. And deacons wore different stoles. Modern churches don't tend to follow this, but I haven't found a good reason why not to, and I think it's a good idea, so I continue to do so. Bishops wear their stoles like this, with a pectoral cross. Priests cross their stoles, right over left, and then I take the girdle and I fasten it, like this. Now, if I were a deacon, I would either wear this stole or a special deacon stole that would sash across the chest and hang down like that. Right? But for priests, we wear our stoles like this. And, "Give me again, O Lord, the stole of immortality, which I lost by the transgression of my first parents. And although I am unworthy to come into thy holy sacrament, grant that I may attain everlasting felicity." That's the traditional prayer with the stole. A little bit easier when I do this in the morning and I just kind of run through them. The next object that at least I continue to use and is traditional is this. It's called a maniple. Maniple, it looks a little bit like a hand napkin. It developed possibly from that as the concept of service. Again, it has a cross on it. Right? Maniple goes here like this, and it does often get in the way, but honestly, once you get used to it, it's not too bad. And this one is, "Grant me, O Lord, to bear..." This one, that's right. This one I really like. "Grant me, O Lord, to bear the light burden of grief and sorrow, that I may with gladness take the reward of my labor." It's an idea that service to God is, though it might be hard, is actually considered a light burden. Remember, Jesus says, "Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for my burden is easy and my yoke is light." It's the same idea. Now, If I were doing Eucharist, I would then put on this chasuble. Okay. However, there is one specific thing that I might put on next. If I'm doing a procession, if I'm involved in like a Palm Sunday procession, okay, or there are certain other occasions, instead of going to what I'm going to next, I would actually stop here and I put on something called a cope. And a cope is basically a cape, okay? And it looks like this is one of our copes, okay? And this is nice, it has a hood, all right? And so, for instance, if I'm doing a procession, I'm totally using mismatched colors here just to demonstrate, that's okay. The cope would just go over like this. Again, it's just the cape, and that almost goes down. And if you want to win Jeopardy trivia, if it has a fancy connector, like even this is called a morse. You probably don't need to remember that. But the cope just goes over like this, and this is usually used for processions. Palm Sunday, Candlemas, which is also known as the Feast of the Presentation or Feast of Purification, depending on which one you want to call it. And that is the cope. However, on Sunday mornings, I'm not doing a procession, just special procession. I'm going straight into the Eucharist. So I put on this, called a Chasuble, which is, Lord, who has said, my yoke is easy and my burden is light, grant that I may so bear it. Sorry. Lord, who has said, my yoke is easy and my burden is light, grant that I may so bear it as to attain thy grace. Again, sort of a similar symbolism, I guess, to the Maniple. And then the Amice goes down like this, and I am ready to go. This is how I would normally dress for any Eucharist service of any sort. Now this chasuble, this is sort of a modern design. We don't have any what's often called a fiddleback. Okay, sometimes you might see old pictures, and the chasuble looks like it's just a thick cloth, body armor. It almost looks like. Those are sometimes called fiddleback chasubles because on the back they kind of look like fiddles. Those were used later Middle Ages, Victorian era. I'm not sure when those really started. I'd have to look that up again. But this is a modern style. I don't have any fiddlebacks to show you, but this is the chasuble here. Now, two other vestments also that we do not have are a tunicle and a dalmatic. Both are worn by subdeacons and deacons. Subdeacon wears a tunicle, and a deacon wears a dalmatic. And they look very similar to a chasuble in some ways, except there's instead of a stripe going down the middle, there's often ones across. And sometimes they both look the same. They actually will look like coats. They're basically big fancy coats. And deacons, but we do not have a deacon here, so we also don't have a subdeacon. Therefore, we don't have either of those vestments here for me to show you. But if you're in some churches that have those, you might see that as well. So again, this is the full setup. Remember, there's a difference between choir dress and then what I wear on a usual Sunday or for a weekday Mass or Eucharist. This is the full set of things. They come in different colors based on what I'm doing, based on the season of the year. Various factors can change the color. And then remember, there's also the cope. And that's the basic vestments. There are other little items and vestments here or there, but this is kind of the simple, basic form. So please join us on Sunday sometime. You will see me wearing this. And if you have any other questions, put them in the comments or come and join us on Sunday and ask me in person. Thank you.